Excelcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Excelcast. I'm your host, Joe Parker, and today I have Pitt PhD candidate Emily Bosche. Emily, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Joe. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm good. So if you just want to get started telling us a little bit about what made you want to pursue a PhD in social psych and, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. In college, I actually started off in the as a math major, and I still got that degree. But halfway through my undergrad career, I just realized it's not really where my passion was. And just kind of on a whim, like super spontaneously, I came across psychology and really fell in love with the research part of it. And also had the idea in the back of my head that eventually I wanted to teach in college. And those two things combined, research and teaching in college, that's, you just go and you get your PhD. And so I just started applying to some programs. I mean, had to really work, bust my, can I curse on this? I guess probably not. Sorry, edit that out. Had to really work hard and build up that later. I mean, since I only got into psych halfway through, I really had to work hard to build up my CV, and was a little surprised when I got into this program, but I'm really excited. It's going really well. So yeah.
Yeah. So you were a math major at first, right?
Yeah.
Initially? Okay. So what made you want to switch over?
So my sophomore going into junior year, I got accepted to this awesome program through Texas A&M University, and it was all on math research. And it's something that is they are very competitive programs, but it's something that looks great on a resume, great for getting into graduate programs in math. But I'm in this program, and I realized, it was a short program, and it was super difficult, but that wasn't the thing that really pushed me away. It was, okay, if I go and I try and get my PhD in math, this is 5 years that I am just going to hate this. And I don't think that, I think I would have been able to get through it, but I just don't think I would have actually enjoyed it. And so that's kind of where a switch flipped. And I was like, I need to find something that I'm going to want to have a career in. And by that point, I had taken one psychology course, like it'd be the base level intro course for like fulfilling a core. And I was like, I kind of liked that. Like, let's just do it. I have 2 years left in undergrad. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. And that little decision, that little choice just brought me here today. So it was super spontaneous, but I realized, I really want to find something that I actually enjoy doing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, specifically to the point of we discussed that you wanted to be a teacher, specifically in higher ed. So how is that that portion of it going to translate over, when you become a teacher?
Yeah, so I started off, being a tutor in high school, and then going into undergrad, I ended up becoming a tutor in the math department. And, once I started figuring out, like, students are coming to me and they actually, think I'm good at this and they're actually learning from this. That's kind of when it flipped a switch. I really want to teach. And it was something that I was good at, and it was something that I liked. And, that's just such a perfect combination. But yeah, going into this program, it's not just to be able to teach. You really have to build up that research part of it. And eventually after that, you get to choose what you want to do. And personally, I'd like to stay in academia, have that balance of doing research and teaching as well. So yeah, I guess I'm not exactly sure how much teaching I'll be doing, but I know I can see that in my future for sure.
Yeah, is there any courses that kind of are really more geared toward practical work, like where you would be researching in a lab and then you would just kind of have students rotating in doing research with you? Is that kind of the route you want to go?
So that would be part of it. Yeah. I am interested in, maybe teaching some base level like stats courses since, I do have that math background. That was something that those are classes that I really enjoyed taking. And, maybe a social psych class. But the research part of it, since I'm gaining this experience now going through a PhD, this whole process is revolving around becoming an independent researcher, and really adding to the literature that's out there, and you coming up with these novel ideas. And so I could see myself in the future helping other students out with research. My senior year of undergrad, actually, that was one of the bigger things that I had going on was conducting my first independent research study. And that's something where we had one professor who he managed all the students doing a senior thesis. And so I could see myself, taking on a kind of role that he had where, he's got these students coming in with having, no experience about what goes into an independent research project. And it is a lot of work. It definitely is, especially starting off with no experience. But I think that's something that I can combine with my skill in teaching, or, where it is right now, improve my skills in teaching, and then, lead other students in research, in their own research.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what kind of research have you been doing recently?
So I'm still starting out. Usually in your first semester in a PhD program, you're trying to get anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 projects off the ground. I am just about having my first project off the ground, which is going to be looking at people's beliefs when it comes to conflict. So, do you think conflict is beneficial? Do you think it's threatening? And how those beliefs manifest in how you actually behave in conflict. So, what kind of conflict handling style do you use? Your tendency to apologize, your tendency to forgive and listen actively and empathetically. So, this is a very exploratory study, seeing what's out there. And I think this is just going to be a really solid base for some future studies. This isn't going to be some novel or huge novel experiment that's going on, but I think this is going to be a really good base layer going into some more studies. And there are two kind of on the horizon that I'm just kind of hopping in on. That's the beauty of psych research, is that somebody might be doing one project and want to include a variable that you know a lot about, or
Mm.
that you think that you could take part of. So I have two other projects that I might be joining in on, which is very exciting. But he's so far in the research, not too far in, but it's on its way.
Yeah, so in your experience, what good comes from conflict and having those discussions?
Yeah. So again, I'm not too in depth in it,
Yeah, yeah, no,
but
this isn't like
yeah.
we're not going to quote you or anything,
No,
but
yeah,
just
you're right.
in your experience of having, the information that you've learned throughout your getting your degree, what is your consensus
Gotcha.
as well?
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I mean, the past year and a half has been pretty difficult, really having to work hard. I mean, from the time that I told one of my advisors, I want to go get my PhD, I know that's something I want to have eventually. A lot of people go and they get their master's and then will go to a PhD. They'll get experience first and then go straight to a PhD program. So I was a little ambitious saying, I want to go straight from undergrad into a 5-year program. So that in itself had its conflicts.
Mm.
um, Last fall, I was super busy with my first independent project, so I was working on, that was like I said, first independent project. So all of the struggles that come along with that, trying to manage that research with all my other classes as well, managing tutoring upon that, and then 2 weeks of super intense data collection where the only free time I had was from like 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. before I'm going to bed, waking up and doing it all again.
Mm.
So that was pretty difficult. Just the physical on the physical side, the mental side too, but that was super physically draining. And then going into October and November, that's when you really have to crack down on your graduate school applications. So there were a lot of times where, I'm staying in, I'm not going out with my friends. Like, yeah, I'm a senior in undergrad, but there's things that I want, and there's things that I have to do for myself, and so I had to make that choice a lot of, I can't see my friends this night. I can't do this on another night. Like, I have to stay in, I've got bunkered down. I've really got to, get these grad applications in. And that in itself also had its own conflicts. You're filling out these graduate applications and you're spending $50 to $90 of an application fee. And you're like, I'm spending this money. I'm investing so much in this. And I feel like I'm out of my mind trying to apply for this program. I like, this isn't something I can do. So it's a conflict against myself. It really was. That was super difficult trying to get over that mental obstacle of, knowing what your capabilities are and, thinking about what you can actually do with them. So that was a super difficult time. And I'm in no way saying that those thoughts and feelings have stopped. It's so difficult being new. You go from being a senior, from the being in the top of the pack, in undergrad, and then you get to graduate school and you're surrounded by people who have been in this program for a while, who know all these different researchers, who have this huge arsenal of knowledge, and you are coming in so fresh, and those feelings just come in again. You're in it like a lot recently. I've been feeling like, am I qualified to be here? Should I be here? I feel like I don't know as much, but that's that's the conflict that comes from it. And there's days that are definitely better than others, and there's days where I can reassure myself and I'm like, no, this is good. Like, it's not supposed to be easy. This is supposed to be difficult. Not everybody goes to get a PhD. Not everybody goes through 5 or 6 more years for just one piece of paper,
Yeah.
But so overall, through those challenges, I am learning that this is so normal, and not everyone is experiencing the same thing, but I think it's applicable in different contexts. Even if somebody is, they go straight into a like early entry job, or like a no experience job, or like a first sort of job, you're thinking that same thing too. You're surrounded by people who have been in this for a while, so and you're just the new guy. So that's one of my biggest conflicts, and I'm still working through that. But in this research that I'm doing too, I am learning a lot, and it's making me a lot. I'm growing my confidence in this kind of stuff, and I know it's going to take time, but I know I'll get there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially because you have, you're doing conflict as your field of study, and you're also now currently dealing with some self-doubt and some self-conflicts that you have to overcome. So do you ever notice that there's a correlation between conflicts with others and conflicts with yourself? Is it more difficult to overcome those conflicts with yourself? Like, what has been what is your knowledge on that?
Yeah. In my personal opinion, I think conflict with myself is so much harder than conflict with others. I feel like with others, conflict, you can't avoid it. With, in anybody's life, you are going to come across conflict, and you have to learn how to deal with it. And so I think through my research, because my research specifically deals with conflict, interpersonal conflict, your boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, brother, sister, parent, whoever it is. Like, I've learned a lot through that. And you pick up on this information that you're reading about in this research, and it's it's awesome. And I feel like I can use this stuff in my other relationships, but in conflict with myself, it's a completely different thing, because I'm not dealing with, oh, I forgot it was my own birthday. That's not something that you have to like discuss, or oh, I need to make time for you or something. It's like I am having this internal conflict of, I'm not good enough, but I was good enough to get into this program. It's like this dissonance, this inner dissonance that, again, I'm still trying to work through. And like everyone, it's good days and there's some bad days. So I am trying to take what I'm learning in my interpersonal conflict, and apply it to my intrapersonal conflict. But that again, that will come eventually. I don't think that is something that's going to ever be perfect. You're always going to be fighting with yourself on certain things. But I'm at least trying to lessen that gap.
Yeah, I've heard somewhere. I heard that whenever you're excelling and you're being a winner, you're going to feel like you're not doing enough. And
Absolutely.
that, I think, is what is going on with you, because there may be a time where you slip up in some aspect, and you know that you could have made that choice to not slip up in that certain aspect. You take
Absolutely.
an extra, you're like, you know what, I'm going to watch a show tonight. I'm going to stay up an extra hour. And then the next day, you're really tired. And you're like, I know it's because I watched that show last night.
Yeah.
And it irritates you because you know you could have avoided it. And even though in reality, everyone else is watching 2 to 3 hours of shows, waking up and not being as pristine as you're being.
Yeah.
But you personally, you have, it's not even a self-doubt. It's like, I don't know the best way to word this. It's more of like, what what great is, what a great day looks like, right?
Mhm.
You doing everything perfectly right, and you know what that looks like, but sometimes you choose to not
Yeah.
do that completely. And
Absolutely.
that is where that self-doubt starts creeping in,
Mhm.
even though you need to get rid of that self-doubt. Everyone does. I do. Everyone does,
Yeah.
because in reality, you're actually a high performer and a high
Mhm.
level achiever.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And in these when you put yourself in these situations where you do have the opportunity to excel, that opportunity is going to be there and you know what you're capable of. And so if you're having that off day, or if you're not performing how you could, that just feeds into it, and
Mm,
there's so much pressure associated with like you don't have to be that perfect individual all the time, but man, when that stuff kicks in, and you have a bad day, or maybe you weren't as productive as you could have been, it really does take a toll and it really does add up. And so that's definitely something you have to learn too. Like, there are things that can be avoided, but sometimes it's okay. That stuff is going to happen naturally. You just have to deal with it. And I think that's where, one of the greatest learning points comes from is, these things are going to happen and you just kind of have to deal with it and learn how to work through it.
yeah, I found even that next day after that bad day is like 10 times better,
It
because
is.
you don't want to feel like how you felt
Mhm.
yesterday. You don't.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you're almost like proactive
Yeah.
for everything that you do.
Even just the comparison, if it's a bad day before, and even if it's just an average day the next day, that can boost you right back up.
Oh
I
yeah.
I think that's great, is if you go from having a really bad day to having just an average day,
Mm,
then the next day, if you just improve a little bit more, you're always going to be at least above that baseline. You are doing what you have to do, and then every day after that, you feel like, not that you're like lying to yourself about like
mm.
feel like you're doing more than you actually are, but it's going to make you feel better each time. Even that, just that little improvement each day, that's going to make you feel a lot better over time.
Yeah, but you are, though. You are doing better.
Yeah.
You are,
Yeah.
because if you're doing, just from a gym standpoint, if you're doing one extra rep, you are doing better.
Yeah.
You're
Yep.
putting 5 more pounds on. You
Mhm.
are doing better.
Yeah.
And it is a mental thing, because everything else may not be completely cohesive. Life is a little dysfunctional here and there
Mhm.
sometimes, but I feel like on the areas that you can control and you improve those areas and you focus on those areas, you can really have a perspective that everything else will take care of itself. And it usually
Absolutely.
does.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does. It's sorry, I had a thought coming in there, and
Mm,
I think I just lost it. I had
no,
something to add into that, but I just lost it.
no, it
But no, I
happens.
absolutely agree. Um, you got to control what you can. You have to make the choice to control what you can,
Mm,
and what you can't. You have to understand that that is something that's just going to be on its own. But these aspects of life that I can control, I'm going to make the choice to advance my future, or take a step back and not have a good day, and that will weigh on you. You have to get in that habit of making those good choices, but also know that those bad days are going to come along too.
Absolutely. And speaking of choices and decision making, your word is autonomy.
Hmm.
So, do you want to discuss a little bit about what that means and also why you chose that?
Yeah. Yeah. So autonomy, I think of it, not in like this political stance, but in like a, you act uncoerced on your own interests. You make the choice of something because it matters to you. And this has been super important to me. Yes, throughout my whole life. I think I've always been a super independent person. Always know that I can trust in myself, and I'm going to be the person that does things for myself. I can always count on that. But this past year, with this super ambitious goal of getting into this program, like I said, giving up those nights of going out and hanging out with friends, or going into spring semester specifically, a lot of my friends, they have the mentality of, that's like, I'm fine, I'm not going to do this night. And I think there should have been some nights where, I was a little too hard on myself, and I could have, sacrificed working a little bit harder on something,
Mm,
to, really take some time for myself and go out and hang out. But I think I was just, really hard on myself, in trying to keep my academics as good as they were. But again, that's something I'm passionate about. And I knew that my academics were going to be something that was super important in my future, whereas people are going different routes, and maybe academics isn't as important. That's your life, and that is completely fine. And it was frustrating because I had to separate, our different lifestyles from, um what or let me go back, let me backtrack on that. um Certain choices are going to be more important to people, based on what you want to do. And, since I chose this goal, I chose this ambitious goal of getting into this program, I did that for myself. And so, I have to work on that. I have to stay on that. That's not something that I'm going to say and I'm going to put all this work into and then not hold it up. I got this acceptance in, I want to say like January, February, I think
mm,
February.
okay.
And the rest of the semester, I'm still where, I'm like, I have to uphold this. I applied, I worked so hard for this, and now I need to maintain this. And so I think sometimes it was like me being a little too hard on myself, but at the same time, I made this choice. I'm going to uphold this choice. Um, and yeah, that's even held up, over the summer, getting a job and trying to make as much money as I can before going to, moving out to Pittsburgh in August.
Mm,
Like, I'm going to be paying my own rent. I'm the only person that I can rely on to pay my rent, pay my utilities, pay for gas, everything. Nobody else is going to be doing this for me. So I have to make this choice that, even though I might want to move to Pittsburgh in June and July and be on my own so much faster, I know that I have to make the choice and work the whole summer, work 4 or 5 days a week, as much as I can to make as much money so I can support myself in the future. So I think the other part to this idea of autonomy is, sacrifice. You have to pick and choose what you want to do. You can't be influenced by anybody else. You have to make these choices for yourself.
yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think that our journeys are a little different, but they're also kind of the same
Mhm.
because when to lose the weight that I lost, you have to make sacrifices.
Yeah,
You have
absolutely.
to, and to do what you did, you have to make sacrifices.
Mhm.
And there are times where people are going out to eat. I'm like, nope. They're like, oh, just have a slice of cake. Nope.
No.
And you can't, y- you know, they sometimes they don't understand either. Sometimes people don't understand why
Yeah.
you're doing what you're doing, but you understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Mhm.
And that's where self-confidence comes in
Yeah.
because but that's where you got to finish too though. Because if you're sacrificing all these things, you have to finish.
Yeah.
Because if you
It's
don't,
gotta be worth it.
absolutely. And I think that plays a huge role in keeping that autonomy throughout because if you have that in mind and you're like, no, this is a goal that I actually desire and I'm actually setting out to do
Mhm.
this, I'm going to do it to the fullest extent possible. And then from there, once I get there, we can assess and talk about, hanging out on a Friday night,
Yeah.
because now I have my PhD. So now we can talk about
Mhm.
hanging out.
Yeah.
Same with me. Like, once I lost all the weight, I'm like, all right, now, I can have a slice of my own birthday cake. You know what I mean? So that
Yeah.
that, that can happen now.
No, it
But
is. Yeah.
yeah.
That was definitely the struggle, how you said about, some other people don't understand. And that's really where autonomy comes in. I could listen to whoever's saying what, like, oh no, just quit doing work for the night. Like, you can finish it tomorrow or push off something else tomorrow. It doesn't have to be done now. Come out for a drink or two. And it's like, no, I have to stay on with this. Like, I have to stay on task. I have to get this done. And, a lot of it is prep. I probably could have pushed it off till a weekend and added some more work and just taken that night for myself. And a lot of times it was frustrating, like, internally, because, like you said, your friends might not understand. They might think that you don't want to hang out with them, you don't want to do anything with them
Mm,
anymore. And that in itself is where, that coercion comes in. You think that they can kind of like push your buttons and give you all the good reasons of why you should come out.
mm.
But you have to remember, and you have to stay true to yourself and know what your goals are, and you have to stick with them. That's where those sacrifices come in. That's where you have to stay on your plan.
Yeah. And that's why surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals is very important.
Yeah.
Not that those friends aren't still your friends. They
No.
just may be your party friends, though. And you can't go to the library with them because they're going to be done with their work in 15 minutes, and they're going to be like, hey, like, I'm going to talk to you about what's on Instagram, what's on TikTok. And you're like, I have a 50-page paper to type. Like, you need
Yeah.
to not do this right now.
Yeah.
Like, and
It's
yeah,
yeah. It's definitely like a context thing.
yeah,
If school is removed completely, they're not just party friends. Like, they really are my best friends, but it gets to a point where, they think I'm being too hard on myself. And, I was probably too hard on myself at certain times.
yeah.
But yeah, it does come down to it where, if they might not have as much work as I do on a given day, sometimes it was vice versa. It was, but a lot of times it was like, you're gonna go out doing something, even if it was just like grabbing coffee. It's like, no, I have to stay in my spot. I can't get distracted by anything. I have to keep this going on, because there's only so many hours in the day, and if you don't have any work, that's awesome. Jealous, but I've got this. I have to sit down. I've got to do it. So yeah.
Yeah. And being able to approach it with a high energy too. Being able to not, I mean, I'm just speaking from personal experience.
Mhm.
Sometimes even when you're like, you have people that are like, oh, well, I just want to hang out though. You're like, okay, well, now I feel like I kind of have to entertain you. Like, like, if
Yeah.
I'm what is the point of you wanting to hang out? And I feel like it's a fear of loneliness to an
Mhm.
extent. I know, like, me personally, if I'm ever like, no, like, come out, if like I have a friend that has something to do, it was like a fear of like, oh, if I go out and I only have like one friend with me or no friends with me, like, is it
Mhm.
even worth going out? But I kind of want to go out. So, like, let me try to get this friend to come out.
Yeah.
And that was a fear that stemmed into me almost wanting my friend to do something that wasn't right for them.
Mhm.
And that was the past, right? I try to avoid that now as much as
Mhm.
I can. But I feel like being confident in you and being confident in what you do and the choices you make will often help you avoid being put in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're relying on other people, and I'm not saying like don't rely on your friends, but
Yeah.
but if that's everything, your friend isn't always going to be able to go out with you every time you ask. And so again, that's where autonomy plays in. If you really want to do something, you can go do it alone. If that's something
Yeah.
that you're passionate about, you can go do that. I think a lot of times we rely on other people to fulfill our needs.
Mm.
And a lot of times, you have to step back and think, okay, is this a need? I think that, or excuse me, we rely on others to fulfill our wants. But if
Mm.
we are relying on other people to fulfill our wants, is it something that you really want? Is it? if you really
Mm.
wanted it that bad, maybe you do need some support from a friend, but all in all, at the root of it, if that is something that you want, you are going to go do it. You are going to do it on your own, and you will get support here and there, but at the base of it, it is about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an interesting concept too when it comes to conflict resolution, right? At what point, whether it be a parent-child relationship or a romantic relationship, at what point does it become okay, I'm now fulfilling all of your wants and needs? This, like, something needs to happen here. How does that play a role in conflict resolution?
Yeah. So, what you're mentioning is just kind of like, like how you handle conflict, like conflict handling styles, and
Mm,
what you just mentioned about trying to fulfill everybody else's needs. It takes on this idea of like obliging.
mm,
It's like you're not really addressing the conflict. You're just giving in to what the other person wants to try and make them happy. Whereas with conflict resolution, the what is considered the healthier type, it varies on what kind of communication you're using depending on how severe the conflict is. But integrating is a style that you are trying to find the best case scenario for the both of you. It's not like you have to compromise your own wants and needs for the other person's. The other person does have to do the same for you. It's you guys working together, finding that ideal resolution. And I feel like if both of you, want a healthy relationship, you can get to that point. You really, a lot of it is swallowing your pride, knowing that you messed up and asking the other person what they need. How can I resolve this? And the same for them asking you, like, I'm sorry I messed up. What can I do to help this? What do you need out of this? So yeah, it's really that idea of integration, working as a unit versus working as two people trying to you know, talk about, working as like, I guess, two separate units on themselves.
yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of conflict resolutions, they all end with, I'll do this and then you'll do that.
Yeah.
Or more of I'll go to your mom's house for Thanksgiving, but when football comes on, we're going back to the house because I want to watch it at home.
Mhm.
Stuff like that. And where it's not like, hey, we can go, but can your mom throw the football game on and can I watch it in the living room? You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Rather like, hey, let's just integrate this all together where
Yeah.
you get to spend time with your family. I spend time with your family, you know, but I still get to watch the football game. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like that, and I think that that's the route that I would go if that's what was going on. But I feel like it's more, what do you want to do? You want to see your family. Okay, what do I want to do? I want to watch the football game, and maybe I don't want to be inconvenienced by someone talking to me that I don't want to talk to or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, you fully get what you want and then I fully get what I want, rather than that integration that you were talking about. Do you
Yeah.
feel like that is where it becomes two separate people working on themselves rather than together?
Yeah, so that is taking on the idea of dating. I'm pretty sure that's what that one is, where
Okay.
your needs aren't being met fully. Like, yeah, you get to watch the football game, and the partner goes and sees her family, whatever that is.
Mm,
But so that is like, you're both getting what you want. Um but this integration part is, what is the actual conflict at hand? The conflict at hand is, maybe your partner wants you to be with the family too, and
mm,
maybe you want to have your partner there also, or maybe not. I don't know how you want to watch sports, but yeah, that's where that integration comes in. If the issue is that you want to, your partner wants to go and see family, you make that sacrifice to, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna hang out with the family too. But then on the other side, it's like they have to understand that they have to then make the sacrifice that later that night or the next day, you get your time to yourself to watch your sports game, whatever it is. You have to cooperate with the other one to find the best case scenario for both of you. It's finding that resolution together rather than finding a resolution on both ends, I guess.
Yeah. So, what would you say specifically, like when someone has an issue, right? Where like, say the girlfriend, their main issue is, I want you to be close with my family, but they never say that. They're just like, you should come to Thanksgiving. And so, like, do you think that displaying the root issue is very important, or do you feel like the other person should just want to do that?
I think I mean, this stuff is it's so subjective, you know?
Mm.
Um, and this was actually something that we were talking about, like these ideas it is something that we were talking about in class. I can't remember this week or last week. But you know, a lot of conflict arises from misunderstanding. So in my opinion, this isn't even research based. In my opinion, it's like if you put everything out there, that leaves as little room for being misunderstood as possible. So if I really want my boyfriend to be close to my family and I don't say it, in my opinion, like that's on my end. I need to
Mm.
explicitly state what I need, what I want, and on his end I'm expecting the same thing. And from there, once everything is laid out on the table, then we can work. Because if I'm just expecting my boyfriend to want to be around my family, and I'm getting upset that he's not understanding that, I'm not giving him the opportunity to fully understand that. It's
Yeah.
about being able to fully understand whoever you're in a relationship with, and them being able to also fully understand you. That's why you really have to be fully transparent, fully truthful. And I feel like if you have that base layer, you're still going to come into conflict. That is something that is so natural. But I feel like if everything is laid out on the table, you have the tools to be able to, work through something.
Yeah. And it could even make for a better solution too. Because rather
Yeah.
than, in our example, coming over for Thanksgiving, he can be like, oh, you want me to be closer with your family? Okay, I'll schedule to do this with your dad, this with your
Yeah.
brother, and this with your mom.
Absolutely.
So like now I'm actually doing one on one rather than just sitting at the kitchen table talking to them over dinner. We're
Yeah.
actually doing something that we're connecting with, that we're both interested in, and it may, it may foster a better solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely is a very tedious process
Hmm.
in looking at all these different factors that go into it. I've had maybe like 4 or 5 classes that have discussed when uh what certain aspects are like really beneficial in a relationship and what can improve, feeling understood and relationship satisfaction. So there are so many factors going into it. But yeah, at the base of it, it's like you need to understand your partner and your partner needs to understand you.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Have you noticed any differences between interpersonal conflict when it comes to two people versus a group? Are you guys doing anything in regards to that?
Yeah, so one of the others, so I personally haven't done research with like intergroup conflict,
Mm.
but that is, I mean, the lab that I'm in is, the conflict and conflict resolution lab. Like that's what it is. So one of the other students in my lab, he's a fourth year, I believe.
Mm.
But he does a lot of like intergroup conflict. So like different racial groups, different grouping by political parties. So they do a lot of that, and it's that idea of like an in group versus an out group. Your in group are the people that are similar to you, and the out group are the people that are different to you. So I can't really speak on it because I haven't dove too much into that literature, but from my understanding, I think that is sort of a difference, is that you have this idea of in group versus out group, whereas in an interpersonal conflict, it's just those two people. So yeah, I haven't dove too much into that yet, but that is part of my lab, so I'm sure I'll have some experience in that soon.
Yeah, one thing that I again, I took a very base level like philosophy, psychology class. I feel like, like the circles of who a person is, where um it's like what your name is, where you live, who you live around, then it's like your age, your age, gender, and it's like a circle graph. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know if I
And then it's
do.
like it gets down to like your interpersonal thoughts, and then like who you are as a person, like fully.
Maybe it's
Okay.
kind of ringing a bell, but it's not like explicitly known right
Yeah.
now. Like,
Yeah, so it's basically like the outer factors of yourself that you show the world, and
okay,
then what you show to like your close. I guess I wasn't saying it as well, but it's like where you show to like people you know, like you kind of
okay,
know them, and then it's like
yeah,
your family and friends, and then it's like your romantic partner, and then who
mhm,
you truly are.
yeah,
And I feel like based on that level, like in a group setting, you may only be showing them 30% or
yeah, yeah,
40% of who you truly are. But with someone that knows you on a day-to-day basis, like your family or the
mhm,
person that you're with, they see more of you. So
yeah,
that's where that can be different, because in that group conflict, some people may know different things about you, may know
yeah,
you on a deeper level, which may make the group think differently when you have conflict within it versus a
absolutely,
one-on-one. I feel like you need to have that perspective that not everyone knows everything about you like you do whenever
yeah,
you're talking to them.
yeah. No, that's definitely true. I think a lot of the like intergroup conflict is also, like you uphold this overarching idea and the others uphold this competing overarching idea, and that's where it comes in a lot, and it's like you're not understanding the individuals at the base layer, and which I don't think is the main issue in intergroup conflict. It is these like overarching ideas, but that could absolutely be true for um even if it's just like a group of friends against like one other person. You don't know where that person's coming from.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, on those deeper, more intimate relationships, not even just romantic relationships, but like with friends, with your family, if it's one-on-one, you choose who you build those intimate relationships with, who can see your true self, who you self-disclose to more. Um and maybe that is where more conflict arises then, because they see more of there's more material out there that you guys could compete against then. So yeah, no, they're definitely very different. um but yeah, it's an interesting dynamic to think about for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like your perspectives on a lot of this, and I like the way you word things too. It's very professional. You're like, I can't speak on it, but my opinion is.
Yeah. No, there is a lot.
Yeah,
You never know who is gonna listen to it and be like, "Oh, I heard you say this." I'm like, "Well,
yeah.
that is just
Don't
my
don't
opinion."
don't put that in your paper. All right, don't.
No, everything's got to be supported. A lot of this isn't just factual support. This is, my interpretation of a lot / my opinions on things. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. And Emily, you also had a quote that you wanted to share too.
I do. Yeah, my quote is, "On my own, I will create. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, I'll create something else." And Oprah Winfrey actually said that's her
Mm,
quote. But my interpretation of this is, I'm leading my life. I'm making my own choices. I made the choice to go to St. Vincent and be a math major. And, that's what I was trying to create, was this future in math. And I had a lot of backlash actually from various people about when I chose to go the psych route, because everyone's thinking, math, that's where you're going to make more money, and psych, you're not. And I'm like, that's not what I care about though. I want
yeah,
to create a career that I am passionate about. I'm not here to make money. If the passion's there, I'm rich then. That's, if I love what I'm doing, I'm rich. So, that was my intention, was going the math route. And then I didn't. I went the psych route. And um, you know, Pitt ended up being, it was my first choice. So I am so thankful that I got into this program. This is something that I could not have imagined. Yeah, like it felt so surreal when I got that call from my advisor saying that she wanted me in her lab. But even coming here, I'm making the choice of, where I want to live. And if this doesn't work, who cares? You really
mm,
can't foresee the future. Thinking back to COVID, nobody could imagine what that would be like. You have you have no idea. You physically, mentally, you cannot imagine exactly what the future is going to be like. So that's why I really like this quote, is that, you know, I'm going to do things in the moment while I can. And if it doesn't work, okay, I'm going to adapt and I'm going to do something else with it. And overall, in the end, I'm creating with the intention of creating passion and meaning in my life. And yeah, and I think this ties into autonomy, is that I'm making these choices for myself. And if it's not going to work, all right, I have the freedom to make another choice and working towards that overall goal.
Absolutely, Emily. Well, it was a pleasure having you on today. I appreciate all of your insights and all of your information.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for having me.
yeah, absolutely. I had a good time talking to you and picking your brain about conflict and you know, just about your drive and, you know, what it took to get you where you are today. And for everyone out there listening, follow us on Instagram at excelcast_. Follow us on TikTok at excelcast. We're also on Spotify and YouTube at excelcast. And as always, stay blessed and excel.
Excelcast.